Hi there, this is Kelly Wilder, one of the librarians here at St. Philip's College Library, and I'm here to tell you about another database. Today's database is JSTOR. And JSTOR is a very interesting database. It's very robust, and it's particularly good for things like literature, history, classics, a lot of that kind of stuff. An important thing to know about JSTOR is that most of the information available in JSTOR is at least 5 years old, so it's not always the best source for like up-and-coming science topics or technology or something like that. So keep that in mind when you're choosing your databases. So let's get started. We're right here today on the library homepage, and to get into JSTOR, you'll need to go into the library databases. That is right here underneath library resources. And we're going to click on J, and right here is JSTOR. And it looks like this. Now, JSTOR, as you can see, does have a quick search right here. I'm going to strongly recommend to you that you always click on the advanced search. It just tends to work better if you use advanced search. And a lot of times you want to be a little more specific in your search terms than you might be if you were searching, say, academic search complete or something like that. So for this topic, we're going to talk about Midnight's Children, which is a fantastic novel written by Salman Rushdie. So we're putting in Midnight's Children and Rushdie as our search terms. And you'll see here all the ways that we can narrow down our search. I'm specifically looking for articles on my topic here, but you might at some other point be looking for reviews or pamphlets or something of the sort. But for this one, let's go with articles. I'm going to go ahead and tell it that I only want it in English because that's where I read best. And as I scroll down, you'll notice that I can narrow down to specific topics. So we've got economics or cultural studies. I'm going to scroll down here and limit mine to language and literature because that's the focus that we're working with right now. And I'm going to tell it to search. And you'll see here I've got 82 search results, pretty cool. And you'll notice that I can still narrow down even though I've already done most of my major search terms. I can change the publication dates. I can narrow down the subject to like cultural studies or Middle Eastern studies, which would make sense since the book is set in India. There are all sorts of things I can do depending on what my goals are in my search. Now, as I look through these, you'll see there are titles here. This is the journal article title that are highlighted. And then you'll also see there's an option just to download the PDF right now. I usually recommend not doing that, but actually opening up the title. So, Epic of Failure, Disappointment as Utopian Fantasy and Midnight's Children. I click on it. You'll see there's a full text here. It's kind of a little wonky looking. So when you look at these, if they look like they're going to work for you, I wouldn't read it like this. That's kind of uncomfortable reading. Once you decided that this is something you want, I would actually download the PDF right here and save it to a flash drive or a G drive or whatever it is you happen to have available for doing that. You can also, as you see, you can share these to yourself through email, Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook, so you have a lot of options there. Another important feature of this database is, of course, the Cite This Item. Anytime you're doing any sort of academic research, and really anything at all that's research, you want to give credit to your sources. So you click the Cite This Item, and it produces an MLA, an APA, and a Chicago citation for your items. And you can copy them, paste them directly in your paper, or of course, if you're more into some of the citation tools, you can export it to your Noodle tools, your WefWorks, EasyBib, or whatever one you use. So all of those are available to you. There's always a little bit of a disclaimer with these. Sometimes there's tiny mistakes in them. The mistake I most frequently find is that something will be in all caps. That's never right. But otherwise, if you give them a good look, they're almost always spot on with their citation. So it's a good source for that. So that's a little bit about looking at these. And like I said, if you want to give it a skim before you send it, you can actually just go like one page at a time by clicking on these arrows right here. And to get back to your results, we'll click right here where it says Results. And again, like I said, you can narrow down. So let's say I want to look mostly at the Middle Eastern component of this. So if I click Middle East Studies, it's going to narrow down to those two that focus on Middle Eastern studies. So here those are. So that's just a little bitty tidbit on how to use JSTOR. I hope that helps you going forward. And as always, if you need any help, please come on into the library and ask us. That's what we're here for. Thanks.